I think one of the things it tells us is that money uniquely has the ability to turn fairy tales into nightmares. In 2009, the world was introduced to the story of Michael Oher and the Touhy family in the hit movie The Blind Side. Oher was a teenager who had bounced in and out of foster care and ended up attending the school where the Touhys were involved. The family brought him into their house, and Michael Oher joined the football team. The feel-good story ended with Michael getting a scholarship to Ole Miss and eventually being drafted to the NFL. That feel-good story has now taken a dramatic turn. Michael Oher, now retired from the NFL, is suing the Touhys for lying to him, withholding money, and profiting off of his story. The Touhys deny all these claims and, somewhat ironically, feel blindsided by the entire lawsuit. This has gained a lot of attention. It really was almost like a fairy tale story. And of course it was. Things that get made into movies kind of resemble fairy tales. You know, it has a happy ending. It's got tension in the middle. It's got struggle. People have to deal and change and grow and form their character. And it was a hit movie. I mean, it made hundreds of millions of dollars. And now, Michael Oher, who is retired from the NFL, he played most of his time with the Baltimore Ravens. He has come out and made some claims that, after further investigation, are suspicious at best. Let's take a look at some of what he's saying. There's a write-up of a lot of the claims that he's making. It says, while promoting his latest book, When Your Back's Against the Wall, former NFL star Michael Oher leveled some shocking news about the fairy tale life depicted in the Academy Award-winning movie The Blind Side. In court papers filed on August 14th, Oher states that he was not adopted as a teenager by Tennessee family Shauna and Leanne Touhy, portrayed by Sandra Bullock and Tim McGraw. Instead, he says he was placed in a conservatorship, unbeknownst to him. He claims that the conservatorship gave away his rights to sign contracts and to make education and medical decisions, potentially costing him money. Throughout Oher's football career, where he played for the Baltimore Ravens primarily, did he believe he was adopted? So the Touhys have come back, and they have completely denied all of these allegations. Oher said he was told that they intended to legally adopt him and instructed to call them mom and dad. Up until that point, Oher's life had been far from stable. He was placed in foster care when he was 11. He attended 11 schools in 9 years and eventually ended up homeless for a time. He was introduced to the Touhys through an acquaintance. They took him into their large, beautiful home and went out with him shopping. Shortly after he moved in, they presented him with conservatorship papers, but told him that because he was over the age of 18, the legal action to adopt Michael would have to be called a conservatorship. But it was, for all intents and purposes, an adoption. He's also claiming that they owe him all kinds of money. He's demanding an accounting to be conducted, saying that the Touhy family, including their children, Sean and Collins, negotiated the rights to the movie with 20th Century Fox, each receiving $225,000 plus 2.5% of all future profits of the movie, which went on to gross $330 million. He accused the family of reaping millions while he received nothing for his families. The attorney for the Touhys released a scathing statement denying any wrongdoing. The statement, in which the Touhys still refer to Oher as their son, said the family made hundreds of millions in the restaurant business and that the claims that they would disgorge money from Oher were hurtful and absurd. The lawyer said the notion that a couple worth hundreds of millions of dollars would connive to withhold a few $1,000s in profit participation payments from anyone, let alone from someone they loved as a son, defies belief. So there's a lot going on here. Number one, he has said that he thought he was adopted. He actually says in February of 2023, he realized for the first time that he had never been legally adopted by the Touhys. If that was true, if they had led him to believe that he was an adopted son in their family, and he found out all these years later, I can imagine that being quite harmful. However, there's some real red flags on this as well. In his 2012 memoir, he wrote this: since I was already over the age of 18 and considered an adult by the state of Tennessee, Sean and Leanne would be named as my legal conservators. They explained to me that it means pretty much the exact same thing as adoptive parents, but that the laws were just written in a way that took my age into account. Honestly, I didn't care what it was called. My mother was going to be at the hearing to agree that she supported the decision to have the Touhys listed as my next of kin and legal conservators. So there are some questions around this. Number one, Michael did not discover that he was not adopted this year. Now, he may have rediscovered it. People forget things all the time. There are some questions around the conservatorship itself, like why wasn't he adopted? In the state of Tennessee, you can't adopt someone over the age of 18. And to be in a conservatorship of someone over the age of 18, they have to have some kind of physical or mental disability. So they need someone in their corner to sign. Now, the Touhys are saying that this was required in order to get him into Ole Miss. I don't know how, I don't know why, but there are kind of some fuzzy questions around there. The other issue is whether or not they've been making all kinds of money off of the movie The Blind Side, and he hasn't been making any money off of that. So this has been answered by the actual author of the book that The Blind Side movie was based off of. He says that the only person who got anything off of the movie was him, that he received and then gave 50% to the Touhys. And at the end of it, that 50% was worth about $70,000. The Touhys claim, and they say they have a paper trail, that they split that 5 ways between Sean and Leanne and their 2 biological kids and Michael Oher, that everyone got about $14,000, and that's all the money that has been made. The other problem that Michael Oher has is that Sean and Leanne have these foundations, and they've written books, and they are profiting off of Michael Oher's story, which Michael Oher is still also profiting off of by writing his own books, like the book tour that he's on right now. So a cynical reading of this is that Michael Oher is stirring up controversy. He's retired from the NFL. He doesn't have a stream of income anymore. And now he's stirring up controversy at the exact same time that he's releasing a book. That seems like a plausible theory to me. That is a very cynical read of this. A less cynical read is based on some of the things he said, which is like, the movie made me look like I was really non-intelligent. And going back and even just looking at the trailers for the movie, it definitely does that. You know, they have him in the trailer getting a big like F on his paper in Reading. And he actually says, I wasn't unintelligent. I was quite intelligent. That's the whole reason I was able to be in that school. And so maybe he's not exactly happy with how he was portrayed in the movie or the outcome of the movie and how it's affected him throughout his NFL career. The question is all of that, whatever is stirring inside of him, whether it's a very cynical take, which is, you know, I'm trying to move a book and I can get a lot of attention from this, or whether we give the most charitable reading, which is maybe he really is bothered by this. Maybe he feels distant from these people who he once felt very close to. Is this the way to go about it? The Touhys are saying that he has actually more or less blackmailed them over the last several years and said very directly, if you don't give me $15 million, then I'm going to plant some really negative stories about you. And so that's what they're communicating through their lawyer, is they have kind of felt like they were being like a shakedown on them because they are very wealthy. He sold a restaurant business for over $200 million. So they're not needing for money at this point. And so really, what's the bottom line on all of this? The blind side of the blind side. Well, number one, it's just very, very sad. And really, I think one of the things it tells us is that money uniquely has the ability to turn fairy tales into nightmares. You should read, if you never have, articles on post-lottery winners' lives, like people who win the lottery and how it absolutely destroys them. I've already mentioned it once, probably because I watched it last night. Johnny Football, the documentary on Netflix. All this fame, all this attention, all this money ruined this guy's life. He still is not fully recovered. Money uniquely has this ability, and Scripture knows that. Scripture speaks a lot about money. In 1 Timothy 6:10, it says, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. Matthew 6:24, Jesus said, no one can serve 2 masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. This really is a heartbreaking turn of events. I loved the movie The Blind Side when it came out. Everybody loved the movie. It really is just a great tale. And a lot of people are casting this, and this movie has been reviewed as something that promotes white saviorism, you know, the white family who swoops in and takes care of a black kid. And if you watch the movie, the people who are challenged the most based on their character and based on like deeply ingrained beliefs are the white characters, most of all the Touhys. They have to really wrestle with some inbuilt prejudice all around. It's a good movie. You know, you look back, it's from quite a few years ago, the way it's shot and the musical score and everything, it's all pretty cheesy, but it was just a good, wholesome family movie with a good like fairy tale kind of outcome that usually doesn't happen. And the guy ends up playing in the NFL for a while and going to Ole Miss on a scholarship. And it's just a great story. And money has this unique ability to take great stories and great situations, great families, great friends, and just distort it and corrupt it. And without real principle and without real structure and without a real plan, money will change you. And the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. I always heard that growing up. Money is the root of all evil. That's not what it says. Money can be the greatest good if you have a plan and you have discipline and your money is used to fund and fuel your purpose. The love of money can be the greatest evil. Aesop wrote all kinds of fables, and one of his fable, they're so simple, but they're so powerful, is of the dog and the bone. And the fable goes like this. A dog was given a juicy bone from the butcher. He was so happy with it. And he kind of went out to the edge of town and ended up sitting by a river. And the river was completely still. And the dog with the bone in his mouth looked down into the water and he saw his reflection, mistaking it for another dog with another juicy bone. And the dog thought, one juicy bone is awesome. Two juicy bones? And so he had a plan. He was going to drop his bone quickly, bark at that dog, scare it away. And when he scared the dog away, now he has two juicy bones. Of course, it wasn't an actual dog. It was a reflection. And the reflection was in a river. And so as he opened his mouth to bark, he dropped the one bone that he had and it splashed into the water and distorted his reflection. And quickly he realized his greed to get one more bone had left him with no bones at all. Very simple fable, like all of Aesop's fables. Very deep meaning. If you cannot be content with what you have, if you cannot be content with what you've been given, then you are not prepared yet to be given more. I hope you enjoyed this clip from the Clayton Tyner podcast. If you want to watch the full podcast, you can check that out somewhere right around here. And if you want to subscribe, you can do that right over here somewhere. Also, you can follow me at Clayton Tyner. That's Tyner on Twitter and Instagram. I would love for you to subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with everything that we're doing.